All right, we're back. Hit the reset button. Hopefully this is good to go. Let's go back up to George in Menneson. Hey, George, are you there now? I hope.
Yeah, I'm here, Bob. How you doing, buddy?
My apologies. Go ahead.
That's okay. Hey, I agree with you on the defense. And I think what might help us is just, getting the pass rush going and pressure on the quarterback to help them out. And with our schedule, I know we got to play Aaron Rodgers and Brady, and I know the New England lost Edelman, but I'm sure somebody else is going to step up.
Matt Stafford's another one. He's a good quarterback. There are a lot of good quarterbacks. They haven't seen, I don't think they've ever played Marcus Mariota in Tennessee. They got him on the schedule, I believe, this year. So that's another good quarterback.
Yeah, I think Keith Butler is going to have to really come up and do his job to come up with a game plan to, stop these guys. But it's going to be a big test this year with our schedule.
Yeah, I think it's a big concern, and that has to be the number one concern from what I've seen so far. Thanks, George. Appreciate that. Got some tweets here. Mark DeStefano says, Bob, do you realize the Pirates somehow sweep the Cubs the next 3 games, and after everything, the race would be down to 4 games? You're the eternal optimist. I give you credit for that, Mark, but that's going to be hard to happen. If it does happen, yeah, but they still got to dig out from that, and that's assuming they sweep. I haven't seen anything from the Pirates to make me think they could put together any sort of long-term win streak. The one this year was 12-2, I think, on a 14-game span, if I remember. That's about it, and it's been very, very erratic on pitching and also hitting, consistently getting the kind of effort they need to dig out of this hole. So I don't expect that to happen, and then tonight we'll talk about whether or not the entire window is closed moving forward, because I'm not sure how much money they're going to spend in this offseason, but they just with what they have, and even if they don't bring back Andrew McCutchen, they're going to end up pretty much with the same exact team. How much they add on to that, we will see, and that's going to be the test. They haven't done much in the last couple of seasons. All right, let's go to Nunzio in Braddock. What's up, Nunzio? How you doing?
How you doing tonight?
Oh, it's one of those days, but trying to make it better, so having you on will help. Go ahead.
I like to make an open statement to Commissioner Goodell. It's time you put an end to this dissing of our national anthem. You're the employer in this instance. They are but employees. Take a stance to respect every person who ever served this great country by banning any type of protest while they are on company time.
Well, they have a free
that venue.
That's a choice. That's a choice that each individual team can make. But I also think they have a freedom to do what they want, which has been earned by the people who've sacrificed for this country. And Nunzio, I agree. I think it's the wrong place to hold a social injustice rally. There are plenty of places to do it, and there are a lot of things you can do, and thank you for the call. But to me, that's not the right, and I think if you ask Colin Kaepernick if he would have to do it all over again, would he do it in that platform? I'm sure the answer would be no. He has every right to do it, and there is a need to try to solve this problem, because it is a problem. But that was the wrong place, I think, to do it, and that's why we're in the situation we're in right now. Now let's go out to Jim in Harmerville. What's up, Jim? How you doing? Jim, don't listen to your phone, please, or your television. Hello? Go ahead.
Hello.
Jim, you're going to have to call back and just get on and turn your television down, please. Let's go to Alex in the West End. Alex, how are you? Alex?
Hey, I'm good, Bob. Thank
Good.
you. How are you?
Good. Well, average. Go ahead.
I just kind of want to talk about the McGregor-Mayweather fight. I know that we're not really getting a ton of coverage in Pittsburgh anyway for it, but it kind of seems like everyone's leaning towards Mayweather for this fight. But in my opinion, I mean, this guy went 10 rounds. He 10 rounds with the best boxer of all time, potentially anyway.
I wouldn't. To me, he's a great fighter. I'm never going to look at him as the
best defense.
He's a very good strategist. He knows what he's doing. He's smart in the ring, and he invites you to do what he does. And his strategy, he carries it out, and that's exactly what he wanted to do. And I think most people who follow boxing would say that. So
exactly.
But I give McGregor a lot of credit for going into that ring. He's never been in that ring, and you saw how many hammer fists he went down. He was hitting him on top of the head. For some reason, Mayweather was turning his back to him. I didn't understand what was going on there early on.
Well, in my opinion, I saw Mayweather continue to turn his head around, and it almost felt intentional to me. Like, he continued to turn his head around, he continued to turn his body around in order to get those kind of calls. I'm not going to call it conspiracy or anything ridiculous like that, but I felt like he knew what he was doing the entire time, and
He
to
did.
go 10 rounds with the best defensive body fighter of all time.
Listen, thanks for the call.
It was a victory.
And I'll tell you, that was just a payday, a big one. They both knew it. Conor McGregor's, I don't think, made more than $3 million in one octagon fight, and so this was an opportunity to make a whole bunch more, and he chose to do it. He knew what he was sacrificing. Eventually, he just wore out. He's never been, I don't think, over 24, 26 minutes. I'm not sure how many minutes he's gone, but this was going to, if it's going to go to the distance, it was going to definitely be in the advantage of Floyd Mayweather, which it was. Let's go out to Paul on the north side. Hello, Paul. How you doing?
Okay, Bob. National League MVP, Stanton or Votto?
How about neither? They both.
Come on.
Well, I mean, to me,
Who
you
else?
got to be on a team that also does well, I think. And if you're not, are you really the most valuable?
Well, without Votto, Cincinnati probably wins 30 games. Without Stanton, Miami's
Well, I
not
mean,
even,
you can make
they're not
that.
even
You can
talking
make that
about
statement
Miami.
about everybody on every team.
I mean, Miami's in the race for the wild card.
I know. 50 home runs is impressive. He has 17 in August. I get all that.
I'm thinking these other teams like the Dodgers and Nationals, they got 3-4 candidates. Their votes are gonna go to different guys, and maybe one of these.
I think someone like Bryce Harper is the heart and soul of the Washington Nationals. He should get a lot of consideration for that, and their team is winning a division. You can make the same claim for anyone who has a division lead or a legitimate World Series threat. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I agree, all those guys are extremely valuable. I don't think there's any hotter hitter right now than Giancarlo Stanton in the way he's hitting it.
He might hit 70, huh?
But it's hard for me to give him an MVP of a team that is not going to make the playoffs, and I don't think they will. So we'll see. I think Paul Goldschmidt deserves some credit, too. He's one of the better underrated players, in my opinion, in baseball. So good question. I appreciate it. Thanks very much. Let's go back to Jim in Overbrook, who's back on the line. Hey, Jim.
Yeah, Bob.
Go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, when was the last time there was a triple play in baseball, and who was it?
There was a triple play today in the Chicago Cubs-Phillies game, and Javier Baez hit into it.
Was there? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. So, I mean, they happen more than you think. It hasn't happened in a few weeks. There was one earlier this year, too, and I forget who did it, but there was one today in the Cubs game, and they lost, by the way. Michael in Washington joins us right now on Pittsburgh CW. What's up, Michael? How you doing? Michael?
Yes.
Go ahead. You're on the air.
I wanted to ask you if Bell was working out anywhere, and if he is or isn't, when he gets to camp, will he start right away?
Yes, I think so. I mean, this is the first game of the year. They got Cleveland. It's one of those games. To me, again, if you're going to beat the Steelers this year, you can't afford no losses to teams you're supposed to beat. And yes, they beat Cleveland routinely, but over the time, last several years, there's been a case here and there where they've lost to that team. He's going to come back. He's going to be in great shape. He's been working out. He knows football. He'll take, a week and a half to get used to whatever new wrinkles in the offensive playbook. I believe he's going to have an unbelievable season. He has everything to play for, and we'll see what it is. But he can't control injuries because we see them a lot in the NFL, and he's fallen victim to many of them. All right, let's go out to Maurice in Hazelwood. What's up, Maurice? How you doing?
Yes, hello. I just wanted to say I think Floyd Mayweather is one of the best boxer businessmen.
He is.
Business, to where he makes a lot of money for himself, and he makes his opponent a lot of money, and he backs it up, whatever he's talking.
There's no doubt he's 50-0. I don't know what else you can say about that. One more win than Rocky Marciano had in his illustrious career, and he knows how to fight. He's a strategist. He knows his weaknesses. He knows his strengths, and he utilizes them very well. I give him credit for that, but I don't think he's the greatest fighter of all time. Let's go to Brad in Duncansville. What's up, Brad? How you doing?
Good, Bob. How are you?
Good. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you. I have two part question and a comment for you.
All right.
I like Cody Sensabaugh and Artie Burns for corner. What do you think there?
I think that's what will happen. Yes. Go ahead.
And my question is, do you think they'll go out and get Chase Hudley in the offseason?
No, he's too old. I wouldn't want him. That ship has sailed. Thanks for the call. Let's go out to Harley in Boswell. Hello, Harley.
How do you think T.J. Watt's going to do for the Steelers this year?
How many what?
How do you think T.J. Watt's going to do for the Steelers this year?
I think he's going to do well. I think we've seen indication that he's a good worker. He's learning the system. He wants to learn as much as he can. I think it'll take him some time, but I think eventually you're going to see a guy who will have Contributions in the sack game. What can you expect as a rookie? I don't know. It's hard to say. But what we've seen in the last couple of years is that younger players, draft picks, rookies, have emerged as starters. And for the first 7 years of Mike Tomlin's teams here in Pittsburgh, that has not been the case. Normally, guys wait their turn, but now there is a need for people to come in and play immediately. Last year, it was Jarvis Jones who was supposed to be opposite of Bud Dupree, and then Jones never worked out. That forced James Harrison to come in. They would hope this year that they don't have to do that, that Watt takes that job, runs with that job, and Harrison can come in and spell him and be, you know, healthy and ready for the rest of the season. We got to take a break. We have Stan in Duncansville. Another Duncansville call coming up when we can return right here on Pittsburgh CW.